Welcome to Coffee and History, a conversation with Alabama Heritage. We are your hosts. I'm Rebecca Mender.
I'm Susan Reynolds.
And I'm Caroline Gazera-McKenzie.
Join us as we sit down with some of the most fascinating figures in the state of Alabama. Over a hot or iced cup of coffee, we explore the captivating tales of Alabama, stories that educate, inspire, and we hope entertain. We are thrilled to have all of you here with us.
Now, listeners, we like to call this segment the Did You Know segment, where we'll share a fun and surprising fact about the state of Alabama, something that may be new information to you or even for us.
Exactly.
So, did you guys know the Dust Cave near present-day Florence has produced radiocarbon dates and artifacts that date to the end of the Paleo-Indian period, which was about 10,500 years ago? In 1989, a team of archaeologists crawled into a small cave.
Oh no.
And our understanding of the earliest inhabitants of Alabama and America has not been the same since.
You know, I don't think I could do that, y'all. I'm claustrophobic. We've talked about this on another episode, and no, I'm not going to do any small caves.
I applaud the archaeologists for doing what we cannot.
I can.
You can.
Yes.
You're okay with small caves?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, she's the one.
Okay.
Tag, you're it.
I'm not physically capable of doing a whole lot. So.
But I think Alabama Heritage actually published an article on this when Dr. Boyce Driscoll actually helped to lead that excavation. And by the way, Alabama Heritage is a quarterly history magazine, and you should subscribe. Just go to our website at alabamaheritage.com. And what else is great about Alabama Heritage, Caroline? It makes a great gift.
It does.
I mean, you think about it once, and you give it as a gift, and it lasts an entire year.
I'm just saying, as the person who is trying to give gifts to family members and still trying to get my life together, this is the perfect gift to give to everyone.
And people can buy back issues so they can find out more about Dr. Boyce Driscoll that helped lead that investigation.
Yep. So actually, the other fun fact I have is that in issue 65 of the summer 2002 issue, we actually talked about this archaeology dig.
Yeah.
I read that what they uncovered would keep them digging for 13 years.
Oh,
okay,
no.
Susan, could you manage 13 years?
No,
13 years in the dirt?
No, thanks.
In the heat?
No.
Also,
I'll do the Mammoth Cave crawling tour, but I'm not doing the other.
Okay.
Also, at the Indian Mound and Museum in Florence, there is a replica of the Dust Cave entrance, and they display artifacts from more than 9,000 years of Native American occupation in that region.
Okay, now that I can do. I can go to the museum and see a replica of the cave entrance, but I'm not going to the cave.
Wow.
It's not going to happen to me.
Yeah. I'll let you know how it goes.
Thanks.
So that was such an interesting article because it really goes into the lessons learned and the technology used for the excavation, which is really cool. And as you know, our next guest lives in the Florence area. He's a professor in the Turner School of Theology at Amridge University, where he also serves as curriculum and assessment coordinator. He is also an adjunct teacher in the Bible department of Mars Hill Bible School, so he's a busy guy.
Yes.
And he also holds 3 degrees from the University of Alabama. Please welcome Dr. John Young.
Woo! Well, hello.
Welcome. One of our favorite
Dr.
folks.
Young.
It is good to be back in Tuscaloosa. Good to see everybody today. Especially good to be here with the good folks from Alabama Heritage.
Oh, you're very
Well,
kind.
we appreciate you.
Okay, great interview. And
It's been great.
You served your purpose.
All right.
Great shout out.
Oh my goodness. Well, John, have you had a chance to visit the Indian Mound and Museum to see any of the artifacts from the Dust Cave?
Yes, although as a kid. So I grew up in Florence, was born in 1989, so I was not involved in any of the cave explorations up there.
Right.
Would have been a little young for that. Probably not really my cup of tea either. But we've been over there several times. They've done some really great renovations to the museum more recently, and just a lot of good museums, a lot of good programs, a lot of rich history in that area.
Definitely.
Is that something that you would actually do? Would you go into a cave and for 13 years?
Not for 13 years. I did.
I think they get to leave, at night.
So going to, growing up in that part of the state, went several times for field trips to the Bear Creek Educational Center, which has, among other things, a series of caves that you go through, but it is sort of a touristy cave experience. You are crawling, you are in the water and doing
Right.
that kind of thing, but with a guide and all of that. That was about as much as I felt good about doing. I don't
Right.
think I'd want to
because
commit
it's
to that.
guided and
Yeah. Now, I used to, when I was in grad school here, I spent a lot of time in the bottom basement of Gorgas because that's where all the
That's like
religion
a
books
cave.
are. And that is sort of cave-like. And I
It's
spent
a
years.
very mysterious part of the building.
Yeah, and at least at the time, no cell phone service and no Wi-Fi, so it was a.
It's still that way.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a dead zone down there.
yeah, and so I got a lot of work done there by the single light bulb hanging over the desk,
Yes.
uncovered, no lampshade.
did you at
yeah.
least get to take your red stapler?
It was a very bare bones experience for sure.
It is.
So,
I spent a lot of time down there too
Yeah.
when I was working on my dissertation.
yeah, that was at least it was quiet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I know
That's
they're
true.
renovating the library, so maybe that's one of the places they're going to look into, and
Never know.
or maybe not. Maybe they're going to keep it.
I
Just
feel
for
like
you
this
guys
is just
working on your
a rite of
dissertations.
passage.
I
to
wish
go.
it would stay the same because it's kind of creepy, but it's kind of cool at the same time.
Yeah.
There's also so much lore about the basement of Gorgas throughout the college, like rumors and stuff. So I
Yeah.
feel like they should keep it. Now, you actually mentioned you were born in 1989.
Yes.
So that was when the excavation started. Do you think that it had a large impact on your formative childhood, like growing up, especially in the community?
So I can't say that cave specifically, but I was going back even further in time, I was a real dinosaur enthusiast as a
yeah.
kid, as a lot
Yes.
of 3-4-year-olds were. I was also an early reader, so I had a tendency to impress people by being able to spell Tyrannosaurus, which I'm not sure I could do now, but I
We
could
won't put you
30
on the
plus
spot.
years ago, and have always been fascinated by the past, but where my career ultimately ended up taking me was the human past, and a little bit more recent in terms of chronology, of course. But have always been fascinated by thinking about what has come before.
Yeah, but it seems like that dig itself would have made a huge impact on the community and
Yeah.
how people, because it's like anytime something is happening in your area, and Florence is not a huge community.
Right.
I guess it's smaller than Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, it's somewhere between 35 and 40,000
Yeah.
people, I think.
So if it was going on for 13 years, then that would have put you out as a teenager, and it just seems like it would be in the news all the time.
Yeah, certainly there's a lot of great, like I said, historical sites there. I mean, growing up to the Indian Mound, the W.C. Handy home,
Right,
probably come up in
exactly.
conversation
And they
later.
just had
Helen
the,
Keller
uh,
across the street, across the river, rather.
They have the W.C. Handy Festival every
Yes,
year,
which
so
is
that's
finishing
a lot
up,
of fun.
around the time that we were recording this. I don't
Yes.
we're not supposed to date the episodes too much.
That's
but,
okay.
but,
That's okay.
We'll
Yeah.
forgive you.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's-
Oh,
Yeah, this is on your turn.
So now it's my turn to ask you another question.
Sure.
all
So
good.
we're actually going to talk about what you do at Amridge
Sure.
University. So I had to look up Amridge because I wasn't real familiar
Oh.
with it, but I saw that it was a private institution that was established in the 1960s. It was under another name,
Yeah.
and then it became more of a theological seminary.
Sure.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. So it has Amridge University, Faulkner University, and Alabama Christian Academy, which is a K-12 school in Montgomery, all come from the same school originally, which was started back in the 1940s, the Montgomery Bible School. But over time, for accreditation reasons and sort of tailoring towards either the K-12 or undergrad or graduate spaces, institutions split along the way. And so now there's 3 schools that all have that same founding. But yeah, what is Amridge University today originally started as the Alabama Christian School of Religion, 1967,
Okay.
and was originally focused on upper level undergraduate studies, training ministers, chaplains, pastors, that kind of thing, and then has expanded since then into a full university.
So what kind of what is it expanded into? I mean, is there like a certain focus? So is it mainly the arts or sciences or everything?
So the Bible and theology faculty is still sort of the school's core focus, but we have programs in all different kinds of fields. What really sets Amridge apart is that it is fully remote. So there is a physical campus, but all instruction, even for faculty members and students who live in Montgomery, it's all done remotely. So I work in my basement, which was one of the great opportunities for me to be out and talking with other
basement
other
again.
yeah
So we
other
can't get
people.
you out of that basement.
Yeah.
First Gorgas and now your house.
Yes, but even going back into like the 70s and 80s, what is now Amridge had a lot of distance sites or satellite campuses.
Right.
I think a total of about 40 at different times throughout the southeast primarily. Also was big in videotape instruction back when that was you'd mail the cassette out and
VHS,
and send it back, and then was an early adopter actually of online education.
Nice.
Back in the late 90s or early 2000s. The U.S. Department of Education actually did a study of like kind of field setting institutions in the online education space, and it was still Southern Christian University at the time, but Amridge was one of the 15 nationwide chosen for that. So again, distance education and kind of theological or biblical education are the primary focuses of the school.
Right. And so you're teaching theology there, and then you also have another title about curriculum assessment. So tell us exactly what it is that you do.
Sure. So on the teaching side, so my PhD is in history from University of Alabama, but it focused on religious history, and that was what my research and a lot of my writing has been about. And so I teach at the graduate level at different times. I teach 4 different grad level church history classes, ranging, as I call it, all the way from Pentecost to the present, really stretching the broad sweep there. But I also teach our U.S. undergrad surveys and our Western Civ undergrad surveys.
Okay.
And so I have a pretty wide range of courses there, and that's on the teaching side. Now, it's funny that you mentioned this, and this is going to date this again somewhat sort of unavoidably. I actually am moving into this curriculum and assessment director role for the fall semester.
Oh,
And so by the time this comes
It
out,
airs,
I
yeah.
will know more about what I'm going to be doing than I do at this very moment. So then it will be, involved in thinking about. So we actually just had our 10-year SACS reaccreditation back in the spring. Was part of the on-site team for that, and so this is which we passed with flying colors. I'll go ahead and put that plug in there. I don't want to worry anybody, but going to be having the opportunity to help more on the admin side. So a little bit of a reduced teaching load, but then more administrative responsibilities, which will be good because we're also have another kid on the way in November. So this will, thank you.
Congratulations.
So this will be a little more flexible in terms of hours, fewer classes at specific times, maybe a little bit more work in general, but more flexible on when it can be done.
We had Matthew Downs here,
Yes.
and from the University of Mobile, and one of the things that he teaches is Western Civ, and so we were talking about that. So how do students accept Western Civ for you? Because it's like that's one of the classes a lot of people don't seem to like, and I don't know why they don't like it, but
Yeah, I have found.
is it a challenge for you?
Yeah, so when I was a teaching assistant or an adjunct here at Alabama, I had the opportunity to teach both halves of the Western Civ sequence and both halves of the U.S. sequence, actually multiple times for most of those. I was in school for a while. And, the closer you get to the present day and the closer you get to your location, students who may not be innately interested in history can at least find something that maybe connects a little more directly
Right.
to them. Now, I think studying Western civilization has a lot to do with the world that we occupy,
I think
but
sometimes it's hard for them to connect those dots.
connecting those dots. And fortunately, I had the opportunity to work 2 semesters as an undergraduate and then 2 semesters as a grad teaching assistant with Jimmy Mixon, and so who is just a wonderful professor, wonderful guy. And someone who he was actually trained as a medievalist, so he was not necessarily like in his main area of focus either, but who really did a great job of finding ways to connect the material to students, to their experiences, and again to just make it fun. Is I don't know how many students thought of 8 a.m. history lecture as fun per se.
Oh my gosh, it was 8 a.m. That's the worst.
Yeah, one of the semesters it was.
That was always my history classes were always at 8 a.m.
But of making it engaging for students,
Yeah.
I think is probably a better way to do that. And Dr. Mixon was also on my dissertation committee and on my PhD exam committee as well, I think. So, yeah,
Nice.
it's been a while.
Yeah.
Now, how many students do you teach on average? I'm just curious since it's
Yeah.
all remote.
Yeah, so Amridge is a small school in the probably south of 1,000 students altogether. The largest class I tend to teach is the graduate level early church history class, which is a requirement for all of our Masters of Divinity students. And so everybody who earns that degree from us comes through my class. And so I'm actually teaching it at the time of this recording. I have about 25 students in there. So it is a smaller school, but then between teaching undergrad and grad, and we also have some doctoral programs, and I have 3 doctoral students right now that I'm advising.
I remember seeing Amridge University and all of the college brochure stuff and the big book that you looked at. So I remember hearing of it. I just didn't know much more about it.
Yeah, and we're right next to Auburn Montgomery, and you turn off the same highway. You just take the other little branching path on the road there, and right there I present pretty regularly at the Southern Studies Conference, which is hosted at AUM, and so it gives me an opportunity to go back to home base as well and see everybody at HQ, since I don't get down to Montgomery quite as much.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's a great conference, by the way. We've been there a couple of times and met some great people, heard some great papers, and a lot of those ended up in the magazine. So there's some great. This is a great organization. So if anybody wants to check it out, it's always at AUM, and I think it's in September. Is that correct? It's always in the fall.
It had been in the fall, but then the last couple of times I've gone, it's been either March or April.
Okay.
I think COVID year sort of swapped around a lot of
Right.
conferences and
changed a lot of
publishing
things,
schedules
yes.
and these sorts of things. But yeah, had actually put together a panel for this year's conference, and it was sometime back in the spring. I remember because I had to get a sub for my high school teaching responsibilities. That's been a new thing for me this year, and having to think, I can't just cancel class. These 10th graders have to go somewhere. They can't just leave during the can't just leave during the day.
I think as a former teacher, that is one of the hardest things, is to try to come up with a substitute. Because it's like you don't even want to take the day off anymore because of you got to find a sub, and if it's not a qualified sub, then you've got to come up with some planning materials that. Because a lot of times when you're a teacher, you just walk in there and you just start teaching because you know the material, but then it's harder when you have a sub. So I feel your pain.
Yeah,
most definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So if someone subscribes to Alabama Heritage, they know you through your article about Johnny Shines.
Yes.
And my dad knew Johnny Shines, actually, which was a really cool connection. So what got you interested in writing about him?
This is one of those moments where, as a scholar, I just sort of let serendipity lead the way. So right after Candace and I got married, which was late 2014, we were living out in Cottondale, Stone Creek Apartments, for those of you in the Tuscaloosa area. And the bridge across University, or coming down University Boulevard, was out for repairs for a while. So then I was detouring down around Crescent Ridge Road, down to Jack Warner, and then back up to campus. And so driving down Crescent Ridge, I would always see this sign, Johnny Shines Street, and it's like, well, that's kind of an interesting name. And I grew up in Florence, and so W.C. Handy territory. That's when I think Alabama bluesman. That's what I think. He was a generation earlier, but I finally got on Google one day and looked, and it's like, wait, this is a really accomplished guy, and this is just kind of in the middle of a residential area. The school's close by, and started doing a little bit of research, and so. When I started looking into his story, the connections to the university, I also found that Natalie Matson, who shows up in the article, she was running the student coffee shop at the time, was also the great aunt of a friend of mine that I grew up with in Florence. And so just one of those neat little connections, like, I better spend a little bit of time with this. And I was also in jazz band in high school, so just kind of I won't claim great expertise with jazz and blues, but have some familiarity, and it would just ticked a lot of interest, just had a lot of personal connections, and sat on it for a while, because again, that was 2014, 2015 when I found the street, and then the article obviously came out this year. So
what do you think is probably the most interesting thing about Johnny Shines that you discovered?
Yeah, I think really for me, it's the fact that he just got out of the blues game completely for a while. You always think about the blues kind of living this hard life, and it's very hard scrabble, and it actually was so hard scrabble for him, and he wanted something better for his family, that he sold his equipment and got out of recording music for a number of decades, and that's part of what ended up bringing him away from Chicago and St. Louis and some of the larger blues cities that he had been living and performing in previously. I think the thing for Johnny Shines that always gets mentioned with him is his connection to Robert Johnson, right? Sort of the quintessential crossroads thing. But I will say that it's good that it has helped perpetuate Shines' memory. But he was a great musician in his own right, and I think it's sort of fortunate and unfortunate that he is always so tied to Robert Johnson, because it means that he's remembered, but it means that he's largely remembered as like the last guy standing, because he lived for a very long time.
Right.
That was a traveling companion and fellow musician with Johnson. And so, because Johnson died early, very few recordings, and so scholars and blues enthusiasts are always trying to find, this, little bit more, another detail about the crossroads myth, and, Shines, he was, I think generally, at least from what I've seen, always willing to talk, but, it did sort of probably from the 60s on dominate a lot of the conversations about that he had with reporters. And
did you go back and watch any film and footage of him
I did.
performing? And how did that come across, and how did it make you feel?
I enjoyed it. So I actually, when I started trying to figure out what I wanted to write about Shines, because I thought he was a fascinating guy, I actually, so I use Spotify, and probably well over a dozen of his albums were on there, some of his solo work, and then some of the collaborations he did. And I listened to all of it, like listened through the whole discography a couple of times, and just the power of his voice, even when he got a little bit older, some health issues that he had, when he wasn't necessarily able to fret the guitar as much anymore, could still sing, and could still, just a real booming, powerful singer, and also still a lot of fun in his music too. You think of the blues, and it is certainly, stories of woe, and the kind of all of the quintessentially again bluesy things, right? It's sort of sad music in a sense, but it's sad sometimes with a tongue in cheek. And I think his music does a good job of conveying both of those sides of the of the music.
Excellent.
Yeah, we've had a lot of musical talent come out of this area over the years.
But also, didn't Johnny's daughter Caroline get into the music scene?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, so she organized, and it's actually back up and running again post-COVID, the Johnny Shines Blues Festival, which meets annually here in Tuscaloosa. And she has also recorded music in her own right, and sings blues, and I've listened to some of her music as well. So definitely like an intergenerational running talent there, which I think is really neat.
I think it is cool, because I've seen Caroline perform several times before. I never got to see Johnny Shines perform, before he passed away. But I feel good that I'm at least able to see her perform, and that legacy, that's handed down. And he does have such a strong legacy, because like you said, the whole reason why you even wrote the article in the first place is you just happened to drive past a street named after him. And it's like, well, who's this guy? And why does he have a street named after him? And he actually influenced several people, including Debbie Bonds, who, worked with Mike McCracken to start the Alabama Blues Project. And that's really been very instrumental in our community as well, because a lot of kids now are learning about the blues. They're learning how to play the music. And we have something called the Druid City Art Festival, the DCAF, as people call it. And so Debbie makes sure that the kids are always there, and they're always there to perform. And sometimes they are really young. I mean, I'm just floored at the talent that we have. Like Susan said, we've had a lot of talent coming out of this community, and some of these kids are starting really young. And I just appreciate what they're doing. And this is Johnny Shine's legacy, is to keep this program going, having this school of sorts with the Alabama Blues Project. And have you worked with Debbie or any of the groups from any of the kids, or met any of them?
I haven't, but I do remember when, DCAF started when I was an undergrad here, and I remember going out actually for the inaugural year, which I guess would have been maybe 2009, 2010, somewhere in that range.
And about 200 people showed up.
Yeah, well, it was a lot of fun.
It was
though.
small back then.
Yeah, it was good, and I think just thinking about when I was here in school, and I'm an Alabama football fan. I started here in 2008, which was the first of the good Saban years, and so I got to experience all of that. But Tuscaloosa, has obviously, for good reason, historically been associated with football and with the university specifically. But there is so much more here. And, as a Florence or Shoals native, I run the risk of not being able to go back home if I talk about the musical legacy of elsewhere in the state. But that really, Shines is obviously a major part of that for this area, and then kind of thinking about how that's continued across those multiple generations and those he influenced.
Yeah, and we acknowledge Florence has great musicians there. I mean,
100%.
we've talked about that before on this podcast, but yeah, I'm kind of excited about some of the people who are coming out of here as well.
Well, and everyone, in my opinion, from my experience, has a connection to Florence somehow or another. It just feels like Florence is like a mini hub for a lot of things in
Alabama
Alabama.
obviously started there.
They did, but for some reason, everyone I
Just
meet
kidding.
has a connection to Florence, even though it's such a smaller town in comparison to Tuscaloosa or Birmingham.
Yeah, you're actually a musician yourself, right?
So I played alto and bari saxophone for a combined about a decade, kind of through middle school and high school. Used to play the drums, but dorm living and apartment living was not very conducive, so I sold that. But then also still play the guitar, dabble a little bit with piano. I have an auto harp, which I ended up getting recently, and it really needs some tuning work, but it's fun to play. We got a little kid's-sized guitar. We've got a soon-to-be 4-year-old, and so he likes to pick along with me, and then we'll have to swap guitars after about 30 seconds, and so I'm sitting there playing plinking along on the kid's guitar, and it's a lot of fun though. My wife is the better singer of the two of us, but and she actually played in the $1 Million Band when she was here.
Wow.
What was her instrument?
She played the mellophone, which is sort of like the marching French horn.
Okay.
If you just like kind of straightened the bell out, I guess. A little easier to walk around with. But yeah, musical family, and Nathan seems to be picking that up as well.
He's so cute.
Yeah, I agree. I'm also biased, but yeah. But probably 95% of what I post on social media is pictures of him and me doing something.
I love
together,
it. I think it's great. It shows that you were a very involved dad, and dad goals.
It's good, and the way that my career has worked out, and with teaching remotely. And kind of being able to be in a job situation to allow for that has been really good. And my wife's a school counselor, so she has time off. It's more and less at different times of the year, but pretty much when school's in session, she's got to be there, right? And so mine tends to be a little more flexible, and
That's
been good.
Really nice. That's really nice. Yeah.
Can you tell us more about the research in the history of and theology of the Stone Campbell movement? I'm not very familiar with it, so I would like to learn more. Is this the beginning of the Churches of Christ?
Yeah, so back, almost as far back as basically the 2nd or 3rd century AD, there have been groups who have said, hey, we've kind of wandered away from what the early church was like. We should try to reform and be more like what they were doing back then. And at different times, that's been an impulse kind of throughout the broad sweep of Christian history. And it's an impulse that's not even unique to Christianity in terms of world religions. You can find other restorationist or primitivist movements, is the other term for it, in other religions as well. But kind of around the turn of the 19th century, maybe a little bit before, here in the United States, as well as in the UK, there were a number of individuals coming from different denominational backgrounds who, for various reasons, either had concerns about practices that those churches were involved in, or kind of core points of theology, creeds, statements of faith, different types of things, and sought trying to restore, kind of to bring back or to get back to what they saw as a simpler, maybe purer version of the faith. That included men like Barton Stone, Alexander Campbell, probably the two most well-known of that early generation. And so from their movement, which grew really rapidly during the 19th century, modern groups like Churches of Christ, the Disciples of Christ or Christian Church, and then independent Christian churches, which are not as common here in the Southeast, but are elsewhere through, especially the Midwest and the North, all emerged out of that movement. In varying degrees, either trying to restore, again, their understanding of what the early church was like, Another major goal was uniting all Christians into one group and trying to break down barriers of denomination or creed, and again, try to just be the church of the New Testament. More successful at some goals than at others, I will say, with my historian's hat on. But again, that's the idea. And so modern churches of Christ, which I'm a lifetime member of, come from that stream of the American Christian world.
Mm-hmm.
Have you written about this, or are you thinking about doing that? I see a smile on your
Yeah,
face. So
yeah,
is that
so-
something you want to do
so
or
it's
dread doing?
No, it's fun because while what I wrote for Alabama Heritage was a kind of a blues and cultural piece, and I'm working on a piece about the W.C. Handy Festival right
Nice.
now for the Southern Historian Journal here at Alabama. Most of what I have written is actually on the history and theology of the Stone Campbell movement, especially here in Alabama and in the Southeast. So while I was in grad school, I wrote a book, kind of an introduction to Churches of Christ history, that was meant for congregational use. It's the cheapest book, and it has also been the bestseller of the bestseller of all of them. Yeah, but then also I have the dissertation, which was focused on Stone Campbell movement history, and then earlier this year had another monograph, Silly Songs, Surprising Stories, and Supreme Court Justices, the wild fun tier of Stone Campbell movement
That's a great
history.
title.
Yeah, leaning into the dad joke side of things there. And that one is it's a little more lighthearted. It's to try to get people who may not have an interest in church history. There is unfortunately at times a tendency within our corner of the Christian world, because there is such an emphasis on trying to be like the early church, that some of the things that happened in between maybe seem less important. Where it's like, well, if I know what I need to be doing from the first century, then why do I need to learn what happened in the intervening
Right.
1900 years? Again, not unique to us, but it has happened. And so I try to break down barriers with that of just trying to get people interested in studying the past and thinking about what has happened before, how did we get to where we are. This book also has a large pop cultural and political, not in the sense of taking political positions, but of thinking about connections from members of our movement to American politics and those who have been in the presidency or the Supreme Court or those kinds of things, and just finding places where people's classroom history knowledge might give them a link into the history of our particular corner of the Christian world.
And where can we purchase that book?
So it was published earlier this year by Heritage Christian University Press. So up there in Florence, just down the road from where I live, about 4 minutes from my house.
That's convenient.
So through their website and available Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, all of the kind of big ordering it online.
Yeah.
Not saying that you're going to be able to go through in like Montana or somewhere and find it in your local bookstore, but through any of those outlets.
That's
Okay,
excellent.
awesome.
So, John,
Yes.
we've had such a great time talking with you. We have one more segment that we would like to call Before You Go.
This is the one that I have been the most nervous about. I'm prepared to talk about my
So
work, but
we have prepared
yeah.
you to be scared. So there's nothing to be scared about. I mean, these
I
are
think
just
you're going to like these
these
questions.
are
Good.
just easy questions, just to get for us to get to know you a little bit better, even though we know you, to get our listeners and our viewers to know you a little bit better. So, I mean, if you need to phone a friend, then
I can be your friend.
Then
Okay,
that's fine.
that
You'll be
works.
fine. Okay, so your first question: what house? See, you raise your eyebrows already. You're concerned. What house would the Harry Potter sorting hat place you in? Would it be Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin?
Oh, definitely Ravenclaw.
And
There you
why?
go.
Team Ravenclaw.
Yeah, I was, it's a small school, but I was valedictorian, a real book to the nose kind
Yeah.
of kid. The only B I ever made was in 3rd grade, and so I have been like, you can say whether or not I'm a good scholar, but I was always a good student,
Yeah.
and so definitely in Camp Ravenclaw for that. Not particularly prone to acts of bravery or of evil, for that matter. So I think Ravenclaw is
There, yeah.
is a good place for me to land.
Okay.
Although Snape did turn out to be okay.
Yeah.
And his voice.
Yeah, exactly.
May he rest in
So,
peace.
what's the most unusual job you've ever had?
Boy, most of the work that I've done has been teaching related, so it's kind of hard to say. But I guess it's not really odd work But I did also work in campus ministry.
Okay.
So basically, the whole time that I was in grad school here, I also worked either as a college minister or as a young pros and young families minister. So about 10 years worth of. So I wasn't in grad school for 10 years, but grad school plus a couple of years on the back end of that, and so working basically with like 18 to 35 age range at our congregation, and was a nice change of pace. Did a little bit of like part-time ministry consulting as well. So very different kind of skill set than a lot of what a historian, spending time again in the basements and the archives and those kinds of things. But that was a good for people skills, and it just getting to spend time in a different context, even though it was still here. We were registered organization here at Alabama, student organization here at Alabama. To have that kind of different relationship with the UA community.
Nice.
Definitely. Okay, so if you could master any language, which one would it be?
Well, I guess depending on how people feel about my speaking today, I may need to master English, or my writing. But I don't know. I guess I would probably say Spanish. It's the only one that I ever had any coursework in besides English. I took 2 years in high school, then had to do a research proficiency class when I was in grad school, and a little bit of mission work to Spanish-speaking countries. And so that would have been helpful to be a little bit more fluent than I was. Could sort of fumble my way through talking with people, but even that little bit has dwindled. So I'll say that.
Yeah.
I know that's probably like not the most obscure answer that someone could give here.
I like it though.
But
It's honest.
but it's practical.
Yeah,
It's practical.
it's an answer. You didn't have to phone a friend. or
But yeah,
anything.
I could have said Klingon or something. But
I was actually
That would've
prepared
been
for like
interesting.
Canterbury language, like old English.
Yeah, I say that I do also dabble a little bit in kind of reading. Well, not reading Old English by itself, but reading it alongside, and get the opportunity to teach through Beowulf and some other works from
Oh, yes.
Old English.
Oh, yes.
So I guess if that was a more helpful job skill, I would probably say that. I guess pure interest, I'll say Old English, but for living life in general, Spanish.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a food question.
Okay.
Pancakes or waffles?
Ooh, I have room in my heart and my stomach for both of them, but we probably end up doing pancakes more often, in large part because Nathan's a big pancake enthusiast.
Nice.
So we can heat up some or bake some or order a bunch at a restaurant, and everybody's happy
Yes.
with that.
For sure. What was your best Halloween costume?
Okay. The one that comes to mind immediately, when I was probably 4 years old, I was the Red Ranger from Power Rangers.
There you go.
And then when I was in undergrad, I was also the Red Ranger from Power Rangers and had an adult-sized
Are
costume.
they the ones that had the power bands? Like power bands, activate.
This
Was
was
that the Power Rangers?
they had like the little. I
like
don't
a
even know.
disc or
Yeah,
something.
that they
or
had
was
the
it on
bells
your,
and
like,
the giant robots would come out and they'd be flying around.
Okay.
And it was just cinematic masterpiece of
Yeah.
the early 1990s. But yeah, I ended up being the Red Ranger twice.
Nice.
Once as a 4-year-old enthusiast of the show, and then once for laughs.
Wow,
So.
I feel really old right now because I was a nanny probably when you were about 4 years old.
Okay.
And the kids that I was taking care of were
Watched
huge
it.
Power Rangers fans.
Yeah, it was. It has been running in various forms ever since. But I remember going to see the movie in the theaters when I was in preschool still, and so Ivan Ooze and all of that. It's probably a reference that most of your listeners are not going to get, but yeah.
Fun fact, my freshman year of college at Alabama, I dressed up as the Green Power Ranger.
All right. Well,
So I did not want to be the pink one, so I get it.
Yeah. The Green Ranger was when he was first introduced was like the really edgy, cool, tough guy.
Yep, and I liked his edge. I was just very into
yeah,
that. So.
yeah. Well, good. Yeah.
So, what's your favorite family tradition?
Oh man. I guess since we've had Nathan in the picture, just being able to host more of our family gatherings, this, you can sort of frame this in a negative way of like when you've got kids, you can use that as sort of the bargaining chip to force all of the holiday gatherings to your house. On one hand, it means that you have a lot more hosting duties, but then also just being able to bring my parents, my wife's parents, and some of the extended family together. Both when we were here in Tuscaloosa. Nathan was actually born here and lived the first couple of years of his life here. But then also since we've moved and we've been able to stay in reasonable driving distance of all of the grands and just having that time together. It was really special for me growing up. I grew up within a mile of all of my grandparents.
Oh, that's right.
And so we're not quite that close now, but still being able to keep those connections. He's actually hanging out in Double Springs with the grandparents right now while we were talking. We dropped him off
I
earlier
bet
today.
he's having the
so-
time of his life.
Yeah, he's as much fun as I'm having. He would not be having as much fun having to wait out of the hallway and being quiet and being still.
You don't
and all.
know that. I've got toys, so
I mean, that is true. That is true. I did see a collection in your office earlier, but yeah, he is a very active,
Yeah.
very fun, but very active,
Yes.
soon to be 4-year-old.
Okay, I'm going to bring it back to food because
Sure.
that's my subject.
Sure.
And also, we are close to lunchtime recording this, and I'm always hungry. So, do you believe that pizza is okay with pineapple?
It's not ever something that I order for myself, but I can eat it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of the middle of the road position. It's not ever something where I'm just like, boy, this pizza would be made better if it had pineapple on it. But if it's there, I don't pick it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll eat it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. I will too. What is your favorite season of the year?
Well, considering that I felt like I nearly melted walking across the
Yes.
parking lot earlier, I'm not inclined to say summer. Probably fall, just because that's well, my birthday is in the fall, but also just it's a little bit cooler. You've got football, you've got
There's a lot of energy in
yeah,
the fall.
the back to school, and again, when I was doing campus ministry, that was always when the new students were coming in, and just a lot of excitement for that season. So probably fall.
Yeah.
So, and this is our last question of this segment.
A lot of pressure here.
This one's the big one.
Okay.
What is your favorite dad joke?
Oh man, it's kind of embarrassing because you'd think that I would be prepared with a better one, but I left all of them at home in my database. Yeah, I actually have a mug that has that.
I support this.
All my jokes are in the database, so I can't even take credit for that. But it may be even better, more appropriate as a dad joke because I stole it from
There you
something
go.
else.
That- I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think there's any original dad
No,
jokes,
no.
actually.
That's
so.
part of the charm.
Well, listen, we want to thank our guest, John Young, for joining us today. We also want to thank you, our listeners and our viewers, for joining us for this edition of Coffee and History, a conversation with Alabama Heritage. You can find our podcast on our website at alabamaheritage.com or wherever you listen, and you can watch our videos on our YouTube channel. We'd like to see you next time, but for now, I think I need some more coffee. So bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.